His fingers locked around her wrist like a vice. And in that split second, the air in the restaurant changed. Three drunk men thought they'd cornered an easy target, a quiet nurse finishing her shift. They thought wrong. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that the woman they were mocking had spent 2 years pulling soldiers out of rubble under enemy fire. She wasn't weak. She wasn't defenseless. She was trained for war, and they had just made the worst mistake of their lives. If you want to see how this unfolds, how silence becomes power, how underestimation becomes consequence, stay with me until the very end. Like this story, drop a comment with the city you're watching from, and let me see how far this moment has traveled. The Ember and Oak was the kind of restaurant people went to when they wanted to be seen. High ceilings, exposed brick, Edison bulbs hanging like lazy stars. It smelled like seared steak and overpriced wine, and the clientele matched. Lawyers, executives, people who wore watches worth more than most cars. Claire Whitaker sat alone in a corner booth, fork moving methodically through a Caesar salad she didn't taste. She'd finished her last shift at Silverton General 3 hours ago. 14 years of nursing, 6 deployments, hundreds of lives saved. And tonight, she'd clocked out for good from the civilian side of medicine. No fanfare, no goodbye party, just a locker emptied and a keycard turned in. She wore simple clothes, dark jeans, a gray sweater, hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. Nothing flashy, nothing that invited attention. That was deliberate. Claire had learned early that blending in kept you alive longer. The restaurant hummed around her, laughter from the bar, clinking glasses, a couple arguing quietly 2 tables over. Normal, safe, boring even. She liked boring. Then the door swung open and 3 men walked in. They were loud before they even cleared the threshold, the kind of loud that demanded space, that assumed the room would make way. The hostess tried to greet them, but the tallest one, broad-shouldered, square jaw, buzz cut so fresh it still had razor lines, waved her off with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Dylan Cross. Claire recognized the type before she caught his name from the hostess's tablet. Military bearing, but no humility. Starched collar, polished boots. The kind of guy who wore his rank like a trophy and his ego like armor. The 2 men with him were cut from the same cloth. One had a neck like a tree trunk and a laugh that sounded like gravel in a blender. The other was leaner, wiry, with eyes that scanned the room like he was cataloging exits. Both wore the same self-satisfied smirk. They didn't wait to be seated. They picked a booth near the center, the kind of spot that made them impossible to ignore, and flagged down a server before they'd even sat down. Claire looked back at her salad. Not her problem. 3 whiskeys, top shelf. And don't water them down. Dylan's voice carried, confident and careless. The server nodded, disappeared. The 3 men settled in, sprawling like they owned the place. Dylan's eyes swept the room, pausing on Claire for a beat longer than necessary. She felt it, the weight of his stare, but she didn't look up. Hey! His voice again, louder now, directed. Claire kept her fork moving. Hey, you! The lean one nudged Dylan, grinning. She's ignoring you, man. Nobody ignores me. Claire set her fork down slowly, took a sip of water, and finally glanced up. Dylan was leaning back in his seat, arm draped over the booth, watching her with the kind of smirk that said he thought this was already won. Can I help you? She asked. Flat, neutral. You eating alone? I am. That's sad. He tilted his head, mock sympathy dripping from every syllable. Pretty girl like you shouldn't be alone. Come join us. I'm good, thanks. The tree trunk one laughed. She's good, Dylan. Leave her alone. But Dylan didn't move. His smile widened. I'm just being friendly. What's wrong with friendly? Claire met his eyes, held them. Nothing, but I'm not interested. Didn't ask if you were interested. Asked if you wanted company. I don't. Silence. Just for a second. Then Dylan stood. The shift in the room was immediate. Conversations faltered. A woman 2 tables over glanced nervously at her husband. The server froze halfway to the kitchen. Dylan walked over. Not fast. Not slow. Just deliberate. Like he had all the time in the world and knew no one would stop him. He stopped at the edge of Claire's table, hands in his pockets, head cocked like he was solving a puzzle. You military? He asked. Claire blinked. Excuse me? You got that look, the posture, the way you sit, back straight, eyes up. You serve? She didn't answer. Dylan grinned. I knew it. Where'd you deploy? That's not your business. Come on, I'm just curious. I'm an officer myself, Captain Dylan Cross. Maybe you've heard of me. I haven't. The lean one snickered from the booth. Dylan's jaw tightened, but he kept the smile. What branch? Claire exhaled slowly. This was the part where most people backed off. But Dylan Cross didn't look like most people. He looked like someone who'd never been told no in his life. Army, she said quietly. Medic? Medic. He said it like it was cute, like she'd just told him she sold cookies. So you patched up some scraped knees, huh? Handed out Band-Aids? Claire's fingers tightened around her water glass. Not much, just enough. Something like that. That's sweet. Dylan leaned in, resting one hand on the table. His cologne was sharp, expensive, suffocating. But you don't look like you've seen real action. I mean, no offense, but combat medics mostly stay in the rear. Safe, cushy. The tree trunk one was laughing again. The lean one had his phone out, recording. Claire looked at Dylan's hand on her table, then back at his face. You should go back to your friends, she said. Why? You scared of a little conversation? No, I'm trying to finish my dinner. Dinner can wait. His grin sharpened. Come on, one drink. What's the harm? I said no. You keep saying that. Dylan's voice dropped, just a little. Still playful, still light, but there was an edge now. But I'm starting to think you don't mean it. Claire's pulse didn't spike. Her breathing didn't change. But something inside her, something trained, something older than memory, clicked into place. She leaned back, putting distance between them. I mean it. Prove it. I don't need to prove anything to you. Dylan straightened, shaking his head like she'd disappointed him. You know what? Forget it. I was trying to be nice, but you're not worth the effort. He turned to walk away, then stopped, and grabbed her wrist. Not gently, not casually. His fingers locked tight, yanking her forward just enough to pull her off balance. Let go, Claire said. Calm. Clear. Or what? The restaurant was silent now. Everyone watching. No one moving. From across the room, a man in a blazer stood up. Older, graying at the temples, the kind of guy who looked like he'd coached Little League and donated to the PTA. Hey, he called out. That's enough. Dylan didn't even look at him. Mind your business. I am. You need to let her go. I said. Dylan turned, releasing Claire's wrist just long enough to step toward the man. Mind your business. The blazer guy held his ground. I'm not going to stand here and watch you harass someone. Harass? Dylan laughed, loud and ugly. I'm talking. That's not a crime. Grabbing her is. Dylan's face darkened. He took another step. The blazer guy tensed, but didn't back down. That was when the tree trunk one moved. He stood, crossed the room in 3 strides, and shoved the blazer guy hard, sent him stumbling back into a chair. Sit down, old man. The blazer guy caught himself, jaw tight, fists clenched, but he didn't swing. Smart, outmatched. Claire was already on her feet. Dylan turned back to her, grin returning. See? Now we're all worked up. Just sit down. Have a drink. Let's start over. No. Come on. He reached for her again, and this time Claire moved. It wasn't dramatic, wasn't loud, just fast. Her left hand intercepted his wrist mid-reach, fingers pressing into the nerve cluster just below his palm. Dylan gasped, his grip collapsing instantly as pain shot up his arm. Before he could react, Claire pivoted, using his momentum to pull him forward and off balance. Her right hand came up, controlled, precise, and pressed against the side of his neck, fingertips finding the carotid sinus with surgical accuracy. Dylan's knees buckled, his vision blurred. He tried to speak, but nothing came out except a strangled wheeze. The tree trunk one lunged. Claire released Dylan, let him drop, and turned in the same motion. The big man swung wide, telegraphed, clumsy, and she ducked under it, driving her elbow into his solar plexus. The air left his lungs in a wet, gasping rush. He doubled over, and Claire's knee came up, catching him just below the ribs. He hit the floor like a felled tree. The lean one was already moving, phone forgotten, hands up like he knew what he was doing. He didn't. Claire sidestepped his first strike, caught his wrist, and twisted, just enough to hyperextend the joint without breaking it. He yelped, tried to pull away, and she let him, sweeping his legs out from under him in one smooth motion. He landed hard, skull bouncing off the polished wood floor. 3 seconds. Maybe 4. The restaurant was dead silent. Claire straightened, adjusting her sleeves. Her breathing was steady. Her hands weren't shaking. Dylan was on his knees, gasping, one hand clutching his neck. The tree trunk one was curled on his side, wheezing. The lean one wasn't moving. Claire pulled a 20 from her pocket, set it on the table, and looked at the hostess. They should get checked. Possible concussion on the third one, bruised ribs on the second. First one's fine, just scared. Then she walked toward the exit. Behind her, someone whispered, "Did you get that?" "Yeah, all of it." The door opened before she reached it. A man stepped in, mid-40s, tired eyes, cheap suit. Detective shield clipped to his belt. Aaron Cole. He took one look at the scene. 3 men on the floor, a whole restaurant full of witnesses holding their phones up, and sighed. "Let me guess," he said. "Self-defense." Claire stopped, nodded once. Aaron's eyes flicked to her hands. No bruises, no blood. Then to the men on the floor, then back to her. "You military?" "Was." "Branch?" "Army." "Medic." Aaron's expression shifted. Not surprise. Recognition. "You deploy?" "Twice, then private contract work." "Where?" Claire met his eyes. "Places that don't exist on maps anymore." Aaron exhaled, pulling out his notebook. "All right, don't move. I need statements." But he was already looking at Dylan Cross, who was starting to sit up, face twisted in fury and humiliation. And Aaron Cole knew, before a single word was spoken, before a single video was uploaded, that this wasn't going to end quietly. The paramedics arrived 8 minutes later, which meant someone had called 911 before the fight even started. Smart. Claire stood near the bar, arms crossed, watching the EMTs check vitals and ask questions Dylan couldn't answer without sounding like an idiot. "Did you hit your head?" She choked me." "Sir, did you hit your head?" Dylan glared at Claire across the room. She didn't look away. Aaron Cole was working the crowd, taking statements, collecting phone numbers. Most people were eager to talk. A few were already uploading videos. Claire caught fragments as she waited. "Came at her twice. She just stood there until he grabbed her. Military. I heard her say military." The blazer guy approached Aaron first, still rubbing his shoulder where he'd been shoved. "I want to press charges." "That big one assaulted me." Aaron nodded, writing. "Name?" "Martin Vasquez. I'm an attorney. I've got 3 witnesses who saw him shove me unprovoked." "We'll get to that. You see how it started?" "The tall one. Cross, I heard someone say. He grabbed the woman first. She told him to stop. He didn't. Then he came at me when I intervened." Aaron glanced at Claire. She was still standing by the bar, hands loose at her sides, watching the room like she was cataloging threats out of habit. "She military?" Martin asked. "Yeah." "Figures. I've seen bar fights. That wasn't a bar fight. That was training." Aaron closed his notebook. "Stick around. I'll need a formal statement." He crossed the room toward Claire, weaving between tables and gawkers. She saw him coming, but didn't move. "You hurt?" he asked. "No." "They touch you before the grab?" "No, just verbal." "What'd they say?" Claire recited it flatly, no emotion, like she was reading from a report. Dylan's comments, the mocking, the refusal to leave, the escalation. Aaron wrote it all down. "And you're sure you're not hurt?" "I'm sure." "You want to press charges?" Claire hesitated. Not because she was unsure, because she knew what came next. Paperwork. Depositions. Lawyers. Months of her life dragged through a system that moved slower than continental drift. "What happens if I don't?" she asked. Aaron looked at her like she'd just asked him to explain gravity. "Then they walk. Maybe a slap on the wrist for public disturbance, maybe not even that." "And if I do?" "Assault, battery. Depends on what the DA wants to run with. Could be serious, could be nothing." Claire looked at Dylan, who was now on his feet, arguing with a paramedic about whether he needed a neck brace. The tree trunk one was being helped onto a gurney. The lean one was sitting up, dazed, touching the back of his head like he couldn't believe it was still attached. "I'll press charges," Claire said. Aaron nodded. Good. I was hoping you'd say that. He flagged down a uniformed officer, gave instructions, then turned back to Claire. I'm going to need you to come down to the station. Give a full statement. Shouldn't take long. Tonight? Unless you've got somewhere to be. Claire almost laughed. Somewhere to be. She'd just quit her job. Her apartment lease was up in 2 weeks. She had no family in Silverton, no close friends, no obligations. She had nowhere to be and nothing waiting. Tonight's fine, she said. Aaron's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, frowned, and answered. Cole. Claire couldn't hear the other side, but she watched Aaron's face shift, concern, then irritation, then something close to anger. You're kidding. A pause. No, I'm already here. Yeah. The Ember and Oak. Same incident. Another pause. I'll handle it. He hung up, muttering something under his breath that sounded like a curse. Problem? Claire asked. You could say that. Apparently Captain Cross over there has friends. Friends with friends. I just got a call from my lieutenant telling me to proceed carefully. Claire's jaw tightened. Meaning someone's already trying to make this go away. She should have expected it. She'd seen it before. Rank had privileges. Connections had power. And guys like Dylan Cross, the ones who coasted on family names and handshakes, they always had someone ready to clean up their messes. I'm not dropping the charges, Claire said. Aaron met her eyes. Held them. I wasn't asking you to. Dylan was walking toward them now, flanked by the tree trunk one, who'd refused the gurney, and a paramedic who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Detective, Dylan said, voice tight. I want to file a complaint. Aaron didn't look up from his notebook. Get in line. She assaulted me. After you grabbed her. Multiple witnesses confirm. I barely touched her. That's not what the video shows. Dylan's face went red. What video? Aaron gestured vaguely at the room. Pick one. There's about 15 floating around already. The tree trunk one stepped forward. This is garbage. We were just talking to her. And then you shoved a civilian who tried to intervene, Aaron said. That's assault. On camera. With witnesses. He got in my face. He asked you to stop harassing someone. You responded with force. That's on you. Dylan's hands curled into fists. For a second, Claire thought he might actually swing. But Aaron didn't flinch. Didn't move. Just kept his eyes locked on Dylan like he was daring him to try. Finally, Dylan exhaled through his nose. This isn't over. You're right, Aaron said. It's not. You're all getting cited. Maybe arrested, depending on how cooperative you are. So I'd start thinking real hard about your next move. Dylan looked at Claire. She looked back. No fear, no anger, just nothing. That seemed to rattle him more than anything else. He turned and walked away, muttering to his friends. The paramedic followed, still trying to convince him to get checked out. Aaron waited until they were out of earshot, then turned to Claire. You really did a number on them. I used the minimum force necessary. That what they teach you? That's what keeps people alive. Aaron studied her for a long moment. Where'd you serve, really? Claire hesitated. Most people didn't understand, didn't want to. The deployments she'd been on weren't the kind that made the news. They were the ones buried in classified reports and redacted briefings, the ones where success meant no one ever knew you were there. Kandahar, she said finally. Mosul, and a few places that didn't have names. Contract work? Private security. Medical support for high-risk operations. Aaron's eyebrows went up. High risk, that's one way to put it. It paid better than the VA. I'll bet. He flipped his notebook shut. All right, let's get you down to the station. Sooner we get your statement, sooner you can go home. Claire nodded. She grabbed her jacket from the booth, slung it over her shoulder, and followed Aaron toward the exit. Behind her, the restaurant was still buzzing, phones out, voices overlapping, the story spreading in real time. She didn't look back. The police station was exactly what Claire expected. Fluorescent lights, scuffed linoleum, the faint smell of burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. Aaron led her through a maze of desks and filing cabinets to a small interview room with a table, 2 chairs, and a camera mounted in the corner. Have a seat, he said. Want anything? Coffee? Water? I'm good. Erin sat across from her, pulled out a recorder, and set it on the table. This is just for the record. Standard procedure. You comfortable with that? Yeah. He pressed record, stated the date, time, and case number, then leaned back. All right, let's start from the beginning. You were at the Ember and Oak. Why? Dinner. I just finished my last shift at Silverton General. Last shift? You quit? Yeah. Why? Claire paused. That was a longer answer than she wanted to give. Personal reasons. Erin didn't push. So you're sitting there, eating, and then what? She walked him through it. Every detail. The three men entering. Dylan's approach, the escalation, the grab, the fight. Erin listened without interrupting, scribbling notes occasionally. When she finished, he set his pen down. You said you used minimum force. You trained for that specifically? Every medic does, combat lifesaver course, tactical combat casualty care. You learn how to save people, but you also learn how to protect yourself long enough to do it. And the private contract work, that involve combat? Sometimes. Sometimes meaning? Claire met his eyes. Meaning I've been shot at. Meaning I've pulled wounded operators out of hot zones while taking fire. Meaning I've had to make decisions in seconds that most people don't make in a lifetime. Erin nodded slowly. And tonight? Tonight I made a decision. They crossed a line. I stopped them. You could have just left. I tried. He grabbed me. You could have yelled, made a scene. I did. He didn't care. Erin leaned forward. I'm not questioning your actions. I'm asking because the DA is going to. And Dylan Cross's lawyer is going to paint you as the aggressor. They're going to say you overreacted, that you used excessive force, that you're a trained killer who couldn't control yourself. Claire's expression didn't change. I'm not a killer. I know, but they're going to try. So I need to know, did you go too far? She thought about it. Replayed the fight in her mind. Dylan's neck. She'd applied pressure, not a choke. The tree trunk one's ribs, bruised, not broken. The lean one's head. He'd hit the floor, but she'd controlled the fall. No permanent damage. No unnecessary pain. No, she said. I didn't. Erin studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Good. That's what I needed to hear. He stood, turned off the recorder, and pocketed it. We're done for now. I'll type this up, you'll sign it, and we'll move forward. But I need you to be ready. Cross isn't going to let this go quietly. I'm not worried about Dylan Cross. Maybe you should be. He's got friends, and friends have ways of making problems disappear. Claire stood, slinging her jacket over her shoulder. Then they're going to have to work harder than usual. Erin almost smiled. I like you. You've got spine. I've got a lot of things. Spine's just one of them. He walked her back through the station, past the desks and the dispatch center, and the holding cells. At the front door, he stopped. One more thing, he said. When this hits the news, and it will, don't talk to reporters. Don't post anything online. Don't respond to comments. Just stay quiet and let the system work. Claire nodded. I can do quiet. Good. I'll call you if we need anything else. She stepped outside into the cool night air. The station was on the edge of downtown, surrounded by empty lots and chain-link fences. A few cars passed, headlights cutting through the dark. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Claire pulled out her phone. No missed calls. No messages. Just a news alert at the top of her screen. Breaking. Altercation at local restaurant caught on video. She clicked it. The video was shaky, shot from across the room, but clear enough. It showed Dylan grabbing her, showed her standing, showed the fight in brutal, efficient detail. The comments were already piling up. Holy hell, she dropped them like it was nothing. That's what you get for messing with the wrong person. Military? She moves like special forces. Someone find out who she is. Claire closed the app, turned off her phone, and started walking. By the time she got home, it was past midnight. Her apartment was small. One bedroom, cramped kitchen, a couch she'd bought secondhand 3 years ago. The walls were bare except for a single photograph. Her and her unit, somewhere in the desert, all of them smiling like they didn't know what was coming. She set her keys on the counter, kicked off her shoes, and collapsed onto the couch. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again. and again. Finally, she picked it up. 12 missed calls, 23 texts, most from numbers she didn't recognize. One was from her old commanding officer, a man named Garrett Hale, who'd retired 2 years ago and now ran a private security firm out of Denver. Saw the video. You good? Claire typed back. I'm fine. That was clean work. You need anything? Call me. She didn't respond. Another text came in, this one from an unknown number. We need to talk. Tomorrow. 10 a.m., Riverside Park. Don't be late. Claire stared at the message. No name, no context, just a command. She deleted it. Then she turned off her phone, pulled a blanket over herself, and closed her eyes. Somewhere across the city, Dylan Cross was pacing his apartment, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and furious. I don't care what it takes. I want her buried. Reputation, career, everything. She humiliated me in front of half the city. I'm not letting that slide. On the other end of the line, a voice responded. Calm, measured, familiar. Relax, we'll handle it, but you need to stay quiet. No more scenes, no more mistakes. I'm not the one who, yes, you are. You grabbed her. You escalated. You made this mess. Now let us clean it up. Dylan stopped pacing. Fine, but I want results. You'll get them. Just stay out of sight for a few days. Let this blow over. The call ended. Dylan threw his phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor, screen cracked but still glowing. He stood there, breathing hard, fists clenched. Then he smiled. Across town, in a high-rise office overlooking the river, a woman named Victoria Brennan sat at her desk, reviewing the same video everyone else had seen. She watched it 3 times. Each time she focused on something different, the speed, the precision, the control. When it finished, she leaned back in her chair and made a call. I need a background check, full workup, military records, deployment history, everything. A pause. Claire Whitaker, former Army medic. I'll send you the details. Another pause. Because she just became very interesting. Victoria hung up, tapped her fingers on the desk, and smiled. Claire Whitaker had no idea that the fight at the Ember and Oak wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. And the people watching her now, the ones pulling strings, making calls, gathering information, they weren't going to stop until they got what they wanted, or until she made them. The sun came up at 6:14, pale light spilling through the blinds in thin strips that cut across Claire's face. She woke the way she always did, instantly, fully alert, no grogginess, no slow climb back to consciousness, just awake. She lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, listening to the building settle around her, pipes groaning, someone upstairs moving furniture, a dog barking 3 floors down. Her phone was still off. She got up, stretched, and went through the motions. Shower, coffee, a protein bar she didn't taste. The routine was automatic, muscle memory built over years of deployments where mornings meant checking gear and scanning perimeters before your brain even registered you were awake. When she finally turned her phone back on, it exploded. 63 missed calls, 112 texts, voicemails she didn't bother listening to. The notifications scrolled past so fast they blurred together. Most were from reporters, local stations, a few national outlets, one from a podcast called Unfiltered Justice that specialized in viral incidents and hot takes. She deleted them all. Then she saw the one that mattered, Aaron Cole, sent at 7:42 a.m. Call me, now. We need to talk. Claire dialed. He picked up on the first ring. Where are you? Home. Why? Stay there. Don't go anywhere. Don't open the door for anyone. What's going on? Aaron's voice was tight. Dylan Cross lawyered up. Big firm. Expensive. They're filing a countersuit, claiming you assaulted him without provocation. They're also pushing a narrative that you're unstable. PTSD. Violent tendencies. The works. Claire's grip on the phone tightened. That's garbage. I know, but they've got resources, and they're moving fast. I've already had 2 calls this morning from the DA's office asking if we're sure about the charges. Are we? Hell yes. But they're applying pressure, political pressure. Dylan's father is a retired colonel. His uncle's a state senator. They've got reach. Claire sat down on the edge of her couch. So what do? We stick to the facts. We let the evidence speak, and we don't give them anything they can twist. A pause. But Claire, This is going to get ugly. They're going to dig into your past, your deployments, your contract work, anything they can use to paint you as dangerous. Let them dig. You sure? Because once they start, there's no stopping it. Claire looked at the photograph on her wall. Her unit. Half of them were dead now. The other half were scattered across the country, trying to forget things that didn't forget back. I'm sure, she said. All right. I'll keep you posted. And Claire, seriously, don't talk to anyone. No press, no social media, nothing. I won't. She hung up. The apartment felt smaller suddenly. Walls too close, air too thick. She needed to move. Claire grabbed her keys and headed out. The gym was 2 blocks away, a no-frills place with concrete floors and weights that didn't match. It smelled like sweat and rubber, and the clientele was the kind that didn't talk much, just showed up, worked, and left. Claire liked it. She wrapped her hands, found an empty heavy bag, and started hitting. Jab, cross, hook, repeat. The rhythm was meditative, each strike precise, controlled. The bag swung in tight arcs, chain rattling overhead. She wasn't angry. Anger made you sloppy. She was just working. 10 minutes in, someone approached. A woman in her 50s, stocky, with short gray hair and the kind of scars that told stories without words. You're the one from the video, the woman said. Claire didn't stop. Yeah. Good hits. Clean. Thanks. The woman watched for a moment, arms crossed. I'm Torres. I run this place. Claire. I know. Torres stepped closer, lowering her voice. Listen, I don't usually get involved in people's business, but you should know there's been guys asking about you. Came in yesterday, said they were friends of yours. Wanted to know if you trained here. Claire's hand stilled. What'd you tell them? That I don't give out information about my members. They didn't like that. What they look like? Big, military haircuts. One had a scar on his jaw. The other was younger, skinny, kept checking his phone. Claire's mind flashed back to the restaurant. The tree trunk one. The lean one. They come back? Not yet, but they might. Claire unwrapped her hand slowly. Thanks for the heads up. Torres nodded. You need anything? You let me know. I've been around long enough to spot trouble. And you've got it following you. Claire left the gym 20 minutes later, scanning the street as she walked. No tail. No suspicious cars. But that didn't mean they weren't watching. She took a longer route home, cutting through alleys and doubling back twice. Old habits. The kind that kept you breathing. When she finally got back to her building, there was someone waiting. A woman. Mid-30s, tailored suit. Heels that clicked on the pavement like a metronome. She was standing by the entrance, phone in hand, looking like she owned the sidewalk. Victoria Brennan. Claire recognized her from the news. High-profile attorney. Specialized in corporate defense and damage control. The kind of lawyer who charged 5 figures just to show up. Ms. Whitaker, Victoria said, smiling. I was hoping we could talk. Claire stopped a few feet away. I don't know you. Not yet. But you will. Victoria extended a hand. Claire didn't take it. Victoria's smile didn't falter. She lowered her hand, unbothered. I represent a client who's very interested in your situation. Dylan Cross? No, someone else. Someone who thinks you're being treated unfairly and wants to help. Claire's eyes narrowed. I don't need help. Everyone needs help, Ms. Whitaker, especially when they're up against people with money and influence. Victoria pulled a business card from her pocket and held it out. My client wants to cover your legal fees, full representation, top-tier defense. All you have to do is say yes. Claire didn't take the card. Who's your client? That's confidential, but I can assure you they have your best interests at heart. Right, because strangers always throw money at people out of the goodness of their hearts. Victoria's smile thinned. This is a serious offer. Dylan Cross is coming at you with everything he's got. You're going to need more than a public defender and good intentions. I've got a detective who believes me and evidence that backs me up. That's enough. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, you're about to get buried under motions and depositions and character assassinations. They're going to make you look like a violent, unstable veteran who couldn't handle civilian life. And by the time they're done, no one's going to care what actually happened. Claire stepped closer. And what does your client get out of this? Victoria hesitated, just for a second, But it was enough. They get the satisfaction of seeing justice done, she said. Bullshit. Victoria's smile vanished. Excuse me? Nobody offers free legal help without an angle. So what's yours? Victoria studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You're smarter than I expected. Fine. My client wants access to you, your story, your background. They think you'd be valuable. Valuable how? That's something we'd discuss once you agree to representation. Claire took the business card, glanced at it, and handed it back. Tell your client I'm not interested. Victoria didn't take the card. You're making a mistake. Wouldn't be my first. Claire walked past her, keyed into the building, and didn't look back. Inside her apartment, she locked the door, drew the blinds, and sat down at her kitchen table. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She almost ignored it, then saw the preview. Claire, it's Garrett. Pick up. It's important. She answered. Hale. Jesus, finally. I've been trying to reach you all morning. Garrett Hale's voice was gravel and cigarettes, the product of too many years yelling orders in sandstorms. He'd been her CO during her second deployment, the kind of officer who led from the front and never asked his people to do anything he wouldn't. I've been busy, Claire said. I saw. That video's everywhere. You okay? I'm fine. Doesn't look fine. Looks like you just kicked a hornet's nest and stuck around to watch. Claire almost smiled. Pretty much. Listen, I'm calling because I heard some things. Rumors. People asking questions about you. What kind of people? The kind with badges and clearances? Someone's digging into your military records. Deep. Deployment logs, operation reports, the whole nine. Claire's stomach tightened. Who? Don't know yet. But it's not standard procedure. Someone with pull is asking, which means they're either trying to help you or bury you. My money's on Barry, Garrett grunted. Probably. But here's the thing. Your records are mostly sealed. Classified ops, redacted reports. They're not going to find much unless someone high up authorizes it. So what do I do? You stay low. You don't give them anything new to work with. And if things get worse, you call me. I still know people who owe me. I appreciate it. Don't appreciate it. Just stay alive. And Claire, be careful. Whoever's coming after you, they're not playing around. The call ended. Claire set her phone down and stared at the wall. This wasn't just Dylan Cross trying to save face. This was bigger. Organized. Someone wanted her sidelined, and they were willing to use every tool they had to do it. She needed to know who and why. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Aaron. Got something. Meet me at Hannigan's. 1 hour. Hannigan's was a dive bar on the south side, the kind of place where cops and off-duty firefighters went to drink without being bothered. Dark wood, neon beer signs, a jukebox that only played country and classic rock. Claire found Aaron in a corner booth, nursing a coffee that looked 3 hours old. You look like hell, she said, sliding in across from him. Feel worse. Aaron pushed a folder across the table. This is everything I could pull on Dylan Cross without raising flags. Claire opened it. Service record, disciplinary actions, complaints. 3 prior incidents, Aaron said. 2 filed, 1 dropped, all involving women, all claiming harassment or assault. Why weren't charges pressed? Same reason they're trying to bury yours. Connections. His father made calls, victims were pressured, cases disappeared. Claire flipped through the pages. One of the complaints was from a lieutenant who'd transferred out of Cross's unit 2 months after filing. Another was from a civilian contractor who'd settled out of court for an undisclosed sum. This is a pattern, Claire said. Yeah, and now you're the first one who didn't back down. Aaron leaned forward. But here's the problem. None of this is admissible unless we can get one of the previous victims to testify. And so far, no one's willing. Why not? Fear, intimidation, NDAs, take your pick. Aaron rubbed his eyes. Cross's family has been cleaning up his messes for years. They're good at it. Claire closed the folder. So what's the play? We keep building our case. We use the video. We use witness statements. We prove beyond a doubt that he assaulted you first, and you responded appropriately. And if that's not enough? Aaron didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quieter. Then we hope the jury sees what I see. A woman who defended herself, not a soldier who lost control. Claire nodded. When's the arraignment? 3 days. You'll need to be there. Stay calm. Stay quiet. Let the lawyers talk. I can do that. Aaron studied her. You sure you don't want representation? I can recommend someone, pro bono, if money's tight. I've got someone sniffing around already, offering to cover everything. Who? Victoria Brennan. Aaron's expression darkened. Brennan? What the hell does she want? Access to me, my story. She says her client thinks I'd be valuable. Her client's a vulture. Brennan doesn't do charity. If she's offering help, it's because someone's paying her to get close to you. That's what I figured. Aaron leaned back. Turn her down. Whatever she's selling, you don't want it. Already did. Good. He drained his coffee, grimaced, and stood. I've got to get back. Stay out of trouble. And Claire, watch your back. This thing's got layers we haven't seen yet. Claire left Hannigan's and walked 3 blocks before she noticed the car. Black sedan, tinted windows. It had been parked across the street when she went in, and now it was rolling slowly behind her, keeping pace. She turned left at the next corner. The car followed. Claire's pulse stayed steady. She wasn't scared, just calculating. 2 more turns. The car stayed close. She ducked into a convenience store, pretending to browse while watching the street through the window. The sedan pulled up to the curb and idled. Claire bought a pack of gum she didn't need, thanked the clerk, and walked back outside. The car door opened. A man stepped out. Late 40s, expensive suit, silver hair. He looked like a banker or a politician, someone used to getting what he wanted without raising his voice. Ms. Whitaker, he said, my name is Richard Calloway. I'd like a word. Claire stopped. I'm not interested. I think you will be. I represent the Cross family. We'd like to offer you a settlement. A settlement. Yes, a substantial one. Enough to cover any expenses you've incurred, plus compensation for your trouble. All we ask in return is that you drop the charges and sign a non-disclosure agreement. Claire stared at him. You're serious? Completely. This situation has spiraled beyond what it needs to be. My clients are willing to be generous if you're willing to be reasonable. Reasonable. Yes. Let's put this behind us. You walk away whole. We walk away whole. Everyone moves on. Claire stepped closer. Your client grabbed me, assaulted me, and now you want to pay me to pretend it didn't happen. I want to offer you a solution that benefits everyone. No, you want to protect a predator because he's got a rich daddy. Calloway's expression didn't change. That's a crude way of putting it. It's the truth. The truth, Ms. Whitaker, is that you're out of your depth. You're up against people who will destroy you to protect their interests. This settlement is your best option. Claire held his gaze. Tell your clients I'll see them in court. Calloway sighed. You're making a mistake. So I've heard. She walked away. The sedan didn't follow this time. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, running scenarios. Calloway's offer. Victoria's pitch. The background checks Garrett had warned her about. It all pointed to the same thing. Someone was trying to control the narrative, and if they couldn't buy her or scare her, they'd find another way. Her phone lit up. A new email. No subject line. The sender was an address she didn't recognize, just a string of numbers and letters. She opened it. Inside was a single line of text. Stop now, or we'll make sure you regret it. Below that, an attachment. A photograph. Claire opened it. It was her. Taken today. Outside Hannigan's. The angle suggested it had been shot from across the street, zoomed in, high resolution. Someone was watching. Close. Claire deleted the email, turned off her phone, and got out of bed. She checked the locks on her door, the windows, the fire escape. Then she pulled a go bag from the back of her closet, something she'd kept packed since her contract days. Cash. Fake ID. Burner phone. A knife. She didn't plan to run, but if they pushed her, she'd be ready. Across the city, in a penthouse overlooking the river, Victoria Brennan sat at her desk, reviewing reports. Claire Whitaker's service record, what little of it was accessible. Her civilian work history, known associates, financial records. Nothing jumped out. No red flags, no leverage. Victoria frowned. She picked up her phone and dialed. She turned us down, Victoria said when the line connected. I know, the voice on the other end replied. Male. Calm. We expected that. So what's the next move? We escalate. Gently, let her know what she's up against. And if she still doesn't fold, a pause. Then we stop being gentle. The call ended. Victoria set her phone down and looked out the window at the city lights below. Claire Whitaker was stubborn. That much was clear. But everyone broke eventually. It was just a question of finding the right pressure point. The next morning, Claire woke to the sound of her phone buzzing against the nightstand. 7 a.m., 3 missed calls from Aaron, and a text that made her sit up straight. Turn on the news. Channel 9. Now. She grabbed the remote, clicked on the TV mounted across from her bed, and found the local station. The anchor was mid-sentence, professional smile plastered on. Behind her, a graphic read, "Exclusive, new allegations against viral video woman." Claire's stomach dropped. Sources close to the investigation have revealed that Claire Whitaker, the woman seen in the now viral restaurant altercation, has a history of violent incidents during her military service. According to sealed documents obtained by this station, Whitaker was involved in multiple confrontations overseas, including one that resulted in the death of a foreign national. Claire muted it. Her hands were steady, but her mind was racing. Sealed documents. Foreign national. They were twisting operational reports, redacted, classified mission details, into a narrative that made her look unstable. The phone rang. Aaron. She picked up. I'm watching. It's a hit job, Aaron said, voice tight. Someone leaked partial records, enough to make you look bad, not enough to give context. Who? I don't know yet, but it came from inside, federal level. Whoever's behind this has access to systems I can't touch. Claire stood, pacing. What about the charges against Cross? Are they still moving forward? For now. But the DA's office is getting cold feet. They're worried about optics. A decorated officer versus a veteran with a questionable record. Their words, not mine. My record isn't questionable. I know, but they're making it look that way, and the public's eating it up. Claire glanced at the TV. The anchor had moved on to viewer reactions. Split screen, half supported her, half called her dangerous. What do we do? She asked. Aaron was quiet for a beat. We fight. But Claire, I need you to understand. This isn't just legal anymore. This is PR, reputation. They're trying to destroy you in the court of public opinion before we even get to trial. Then we give them the truth. The truth's classified. You can't talk about operations. You know that. Claire exhaled slowly. He was right. The mission she'd been on, the things she'd done, most of it was still under lock and key. She couldn't defend herself without violating federal law. So I just take it, she said. No. You let me handle the legal side, and you stay out of sight. No statements, no interviews, nothing they can twist. Claire didn't respond. Claire, promise me. I'll stay quiet. Good. I'll call you later. The line went dead. Claire sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the muted television. The anchor had moved to weather, but the damage was done. Her face was out there. Her name. A version of her story that wasn't hers. She turned off the TV and got dressed. An hour later, she was back at the gym. Torres was at the front desk, reading something on her phone. She looked up when Claire walked in. You see the news? Torres asked. Yeah. It's garbage. Anyone with half a brain can see that. Claire set her bag down. Doesn't matter what's true. Matters what people believe. Torres stood, arms crossed. You planning to fight back? I don't know yet. Well, you should. Because sitting quiet while they drag you, that's not a strategy. That's surrender. Claire met her eyes. I'm not surrendering. Good. Then do something about it. Claire wrapped her hands and hit the bag for 40 minutes straight. Jab, cross, hook, uppercut. Each strike harder than the last. Sweat dripped down her face, soaked through her shirt. Her knuckles ached. She didn't stop. When she finally did, her phone was ringing. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, then thought better of it. Yeah, Ms. Whitaker, this is Jenna Corrales. I'm a producer with Frontline Reports. We're doing a segment on your case, and I'd love to get your side of the story. Claire's jaw tightened. Not interested. I understand you're being careful, but the narrative's getting away from you. Let me help you take it back. I said no. We can do this on your terms. No ambush questions, just you, telling your story, The real one. Claire hung up. The phone rang again, different number, same pitch. She blocked it. Third call. She stopped answering. By the time she left the gym, her phone had 17 missed calls from reporters, 6 voicemails she didn't listen to, and 1 message from Garrett Hale. Call me. Found something. She called him from a bench outside, watching the street. What'd you find? She asked when he picked up. The leak. It came from a DoD contractor named Meridian Group. They handle records management for classified personnel files. Someone inside accessed your file 2 days ago and pulled specific sections. Who? Don't know yet, but Meridian's got ties to private security firms, the kind that do work for people with money and no ethics. Claire's mind flashed to Victoria Brennan, Richard Calloway, the Cross family. Can you trace it? I'm trying, but these guys are good at covering tracks. It'll take time. I don't have time, Garrett grunted. Then you better hope the trial moves fast, because whoever's pulling strings, they're not done. Claire thanked him and hung up. She sat there for a while, watching people pass. Joggers, dog walkers, a kid on a skateboard weaving between pedestrians. Normal life, the kind she'd been trying to build after hanging up the uniform. Her phone buzzed. Text from Aaron. Arraignment moved up. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. courthouse downtown. Be ready. Claire stood and started walking. The courthouse was old. Gray stone, columns out front, steps worn smooth by decades of foot traffic. Claire arrived early, dressed in slacks and a button-down, hair pulled back. Professional, neutral. Nothing that screamed veteran or victim. Aaron met her outside. He looked like he hadn't slept. You good? He asked. I'm here. That's not what I asked. Claire looked at him. I'm good. Inside, the courtroom was already packed. Reporters in the back rows, sketch artists. A few people Claire didn't recognize, probably just curious locals who'd seen the video. Dylan Cross was there too, sitting at the defense table with 3 lawyers in suits that cost more than Claire's car. He looked calm, confident, like he knew how this would go. Claire sat beside Aaron at the prosecution table. She didn't look at Dylan, didn't need to. The judge entered, a woman in her 60s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense expression. Judge Marianne Thornhill. Aaron had briefed Claire on her. Former prosecutor, fair but strict. All rise. Everyone stood. The judge sat. Everyone else followed. We're here for the arraignment of Dylan Michael Cross, Thornhill said, flipping through papers. Charges include assault, battery, and harassment. How does the defendant plead? One of Dylan's lawyers stood, tall, silver-haired, voice like gravel. Not guilty, Your Honor. Thornhill nodded. Bail? The defense requests bail be set at $25,000. Mr. Cross is a decorated officer with deep community ties. He poses no flight risk. The prosecutor, a young woman named Lisa Hartman, stood. Your Honor, the defendant has a history of similar incidents. We believe he's a danger to others and request bail be denied. Dylan's lawyer smiled. Your Honor, those alleged incidents were never substantiated. This is character assassination, not evidence. Thornhill looked at Hartman. Do you have documentation? We're working on obtaining it, Your Honor. That's not an answer. Hartman hesitated. Not yet, Your Honor. Thornhill sighed. Bail is set at $50,000. Defendant is ordered to surrender his passport and remain within city limits pending trial. Next. Dylan's lawyers were already standing, moving to post bail. The whole thing had taken less than 10 minutes. Claire watched them leave. Dylan glanced back once, caught her eye, and smirked. Outside, Aaron pulled Claire aside. That could have gone worse. He's out. On bail. It's standard. He assaulted me, and he's walking free. For now. But we've got a trial date, 3 weeks. That's when it counts. Claire looked at him. 3 weeks? That's a long time. I know, but we use it. We build our case. We get those previous victims to testify. You said they won't. They won't if we ask nicely, but if we subpoena them, they don't have a choice. Claire nodded slowly. Do it. Aaron checked his watch. I've got to get back. You need a ride? I'm good. He left. Claire stood on the courthouse steps, watching the crowd disperse. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She ignored it. Then it rang again. Same number. She answered. What? Ms. Whitaker, my name is Colonel James Brennick. I served with your father in the 82nd Airborne. I need to speak with you. It's urgent. Claire's breath caught. Her father had died 12 years ago. Helicopter crash during a training exercise. She didn't talk about him, didn't think about him if she could help it. How did you get this number? She asked. That's not important. What's important is that you're in danger, real danger, and I can help. I don't need help from strangers. You need help from someone. The people coming after you. They're not just trying to win a lawsuit. They're trying to erase you. Claire's grip tightened on the phone. Who are you really? Someone who knows what you did overseas, someone who knows you saved lives most people will never hear about, and someone who knows that if you go down, it'll be because good people stayed quiet. Why do you care? A pause. Because your father saved my life once, and I owe him. Claire didn't respond. Meet me, Brennick said. Tonight, Harper's Diner on 5th, 8 p.m. Come alone. The line went dead. Claire stood there, phone in hand, trying to decide if this was a trap or a lifeline. She decided it didn't matter. She was going either way. Harper's Diner was the kind of place that hadn't changed in 40 years. Red vinyl booze, checkered floors, a jukebox that played Patsy Cline and Johnny Cash. Claire arrived at 7:50 p.m., scanned the room, and spotted him immediately. Colonel James Brennick, late 60s, gray beard, weathered face. He wore a flannel shirt and jeans, but his posture gave him away. Straight-backed, eyes alert, hands visible on the table. Claire slid into the booth across from him. You came, Brennick said. You mentioned my father. That gets you 5 minutes. Brennick nodded. Fair, I'll make it count. He pulled a folder from the seat beside him and slid it across the table. This is everything I could find on the people targeting you. Cross Family, Meridian Group, a few names you won't recognize yet. Claire opened the folder. Documents, photos, financial records. Meridian Group is a shell, Brennick said. They contract for DoD, but their real money comes from private clients. People who need things done quietly. Dylan Cross's father hired them to dig up dirt on you. When that didn't work, they started fabricating it. How do you know this? Because I used to work with them, before I figured out what they really were. Claire looked up. And what are they? Fixers. They clean up messes for people with power, make problems disappear, discredit witnesses, bury evidence, whatever it takes. So why are you telling me? Brennick leaned forward. Because your father would have done the same for my daughter, and because what they're doing to you is wrong. Claire studied him. He didn't look like he was lying, but she'd been fooled before. What do you want from me? She asked. Nothing. Just wanted you to know what you're up against, and to give you a choice. What choice? Brennick slid another piece of paper across the table. A name, an address, a phone number. This is someone who can help you. Former JAG lawyer, specializes in cases like yours. She owes me a favor, and she's willing to take you on pro bono. Claire looked at the name. Captain Rebecca Ortiz, retired. Why would she do that? Because she hates bullies, and because she's good at what she does. Claire folded the paper and pocketed it. Thank you. Brennick stood. One more thing. Watch your back. Meridian doesn't just dig up dirt. If they think you're a real threat, they'll escalate. Escalate how? However they need to. He left cash on the table and walked out. Claire sat there for a moment, processing. Then she pulled out her phone and called the number Brennick had given her. A woman answered. Ortiz. My name is Claire Whitaker. Colonel Brennick gave me your number. A pause. I've been expecting your call. When can you meet? Tomorrow. Good. My office. 10 a.m. Don't be late. The call ended. Claire left the diner and walked back to her car. The streets were quieter now, just a few people out, headlights cutting through the dark. She didn't notice the black sedan following her until it pulled up alongside. The window rolled down. Richard Calloway. Ms. Whitaker, he said, we need to talk. We already did. That was a negotiation. This is a warning. Claire kept walking. The car matched her pace. You've made things difficult, Calloway continued. My clients were willing to be reasonable, but you forced their hand. Claire stopped, turned. Force their hand how? Calloway smiled. You'll find out soon enough. The window rolled up. The car drove off. Claire stood there, watching it disappear into the night. Then her phone rang. Aaron. Claire, where are you? 5th Street. Why? Get somewhere public, now. What's going on? Someone just posted your home address online, along with a photo of your building and a caption that says, "Let's see how tough she really is." Claire's blood went cold. When? 10 minutes ago. It's already been shared 1,000 times. Claire started running. She made it back to her apartment in under 5 minutes. The building looked normal from the outside. No crowds, no vandalism. But when she got to her floor, her door was open. Not kicked in, not broken, just unlocked. Like someone had a key. Claire pulled the knife from her bag and stepped inside. The apartment was trashed, furniture overturned, drawers pulled out. Her photograph, the one of her unit, was on the floor, glass shattered. But what made her stop was the message spray-painted across the living room wall in red. Drop it, or we drop you. Claire stood there, knife in hand, staring at the words. Then she heard footsteps behind her. She spun, blade up, and froze. Standing in her doorway, blocking the exit, were 3 men, not Dylan and his friends. Different, professional. Faces she didn't recognize. The one in front smiled. Smart move would be to listen, he said. Claire didn't lower the knife. Get out. We're just here to deliver a message. I got it. Now leave. The man stepped closer. See, the problem is you're not listening, so we're going to make sure you do. That was when the lights went out. Claire moved before her eyes adjusted. Muscle memory took over, the kind drilled into you until thinking became a liability. She dropped low, blade angled up, and sidestepped left just as the first man lunged where she'd been standing. His momentum carried him past her. She didn't waste it. Her elbow snapped into his kidney, precise and brutal. He grunted, stumbled forward into the overturned couch. The second man was already on her. She felt his hand grab for her shoulder, fingers digging in. Claire twisted, using his grip against him, and drove the heel of her palm into his nose. Cartilage crunched. He reeled back, cursing, hands flying to his face. The third one was smarter. He stayed in the doorway, blocking the exit, and pulled something from his jacket. Not a gun, a taser. Claire saw the prongs arc blue in the darkness and dove behind the kitchen counter. The wires snapped past her, embedding in the drywall. The man swore, started reeling them back in for another shot. She didn't give him the chance. Claire grabbed the cast iron skillet still sitting on the stove from breakfast 3 days ago and hurled it. The pan spun end over end, caught him square in the chest. He staggered, lost his grip on the taser. It clattered to the floor. The first man was back on his feet, coming around the couch. Claire grabbed the edge of the counter and vaulted over it, landing between him and the door. He swung. She ducked, felt the air move above her head, and came up with the knife. She didn't stab, just pressed the tip against his throat, enough to make him freeze. Out, she said. Quiet. Steady. He raised his hand slowly. You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. You've got 3 seconds. The second man was still on his knees, blood streaming from his nose. The third was clutching his ribs where the skillet had hit. We were just supposed to scare you, the first man said. You failed. 1. This isn't over. 2. He backed toward the door. The other 2 followed, moving slow, hands up. They stepped into the hallway. Claire kicked the door shut behind them and locked it. Then she grabbed her phone and called Aaron. They were in my apartment, she said when he picked up. Who? 3 guys, professionals. They trashed the place and tried to jump me when the lights went out. Are you hurt? No, but they're gone now. Aaron was already moving. She could hear it. Keys jangling, a door slamming. I'm calling it in. Stay there. Don't touch anything. Aaron, they had a key. They didn't break in. Someone gave them access. Silence. Then, I'm 5 minutes out. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. Claire hung up and looked around. The apartment was a disaster, but she didn't care about the furniture. She cared about what they'd been looking for. She checked her closet. The go bag was still there, untouched. They hadn't found it, but her laptop was gone. So was the external hard drive where she kept personal files, old photos, medical records, deployment paperwork. They weren't just trying to scare her, they were gathering intel. Claire grabbed the go bag, slung it over her shoulder, and waited by the door until she heard footsteps and Aaron's voice calling her name. She let him in. Aaron swept the apartment with his flashlight, took in the damage, the spray-painted message, the shattered glass. His jaw tightened. "This is escalation," he said. "I noticed. We need to get you somewhere safe. I'm not hiding. Claire." "I said I'm not hiding." She met his eyes. "They want me scared. They want me to drop the charges and disappear. I'm not giving them that." Aaron exhaled, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "All right, then we do this smart. You're not staying here. I've got a friend with a place outside the city, off the grid. You stay there until trial. And if they find me, they won't. Not if we're careful." Claire wanted to argue. Wanted to say she didn't need protection, didn't need to be stashed away like evidence. But she also knew Aaron was right. Staying here made her a target, and targets got hit. "Fine," she said, "but only until trial." "Deal." Aaron made calls while Claire packed what was left of her things. 30 minutes later, they were in his car, heading west out of Silverton. The city lights faded behind them, replaced by dark roads and empty fields. The safe house turned out to be a cabin an hour outside the city, tucked into the woods at the end of a gravel road. Small, one bedroom, but clean. Aaron's friend, a retired detective named Paul Hendricks, met them at the door. "You can stay as long as you need," Paul said, handing Claire a key. "Nobody knows about this place except me and Aaron. You'll be safe here." Claire nodded. "Thank you." Paul left. Aaron lingered. "I'll check in tomorrow," he said. "In the meantime, don't contact anyone. Don't use your phone unless it's an emergency, and if anything feels wrong, you call me immediately." "I will." Aaron hesitated like he wanted to say more, then just nodded and left. Claire locked the door behind him, set her bag down, and looked around. The cabin was quiet. Too quiet. She wasn't used to it anymore, not after years of sleeping in tents with helicopters overhead and radios crackling static through the night. She checked the windows, locked, checked the back door, secure. Then she sat down at the kitchen table and opened the folder Colonel Brennick had given her. She read for hours. Meridian Group wasn't just a contractor. They were a network. Connections to private military firms, lobbying groups, political action committees. They had fingers in everything, and their client list read like a who's who of people who didn't want their names in public records. One name stood out. Senator William Cross, Dylan's uncle. Claire cross-referenced him with the financial records. Meridian had received 3 payments from a PAC linked to the senator in the past 6 months, tens of thousands of dollars, officially for consulting services. Unofficially, cleanup. She kept reading, found a list of previous cases where Meridian had been involved. Whistleblowers discredited, accusers silenced, evidence that disappeared before it could reach a courtroom. They were good at what they did, and they'd been doing it for a long time. But they'd made one mistake. They'd underestimated her. Claire pulled out the burner phone from her go bag and dialed the number Brennick had given her. Rebecca Ortiz answered on the second ring. "You're late." "I had a situation." "I heard. Aaron Cole called me, told me what happened." "Then you know what I'm up against." "I do, and I'm in. But we need to move fast. Trial's in 2 weeks, and we've got a lot of ground to cover." "What do you need from me?" "Everything, every deployment, every operation, every detail you can remember. I need to build a case that shows you're not the person they're trying to paint you as." Claire hesitated. "Most of it's classified." "I know, but I've got clearance, and I've got contacts who can authorize the release of certain records under litigation exemption. It's a narrow window, but it's there." "How long will that take?" "A week, maybe less if I call in favors." "Do it." "Already started. In the meantime, you sit tight. Don't do anything stupid." "Define stupid." "Anything that gets you killed." Claire almost smiled. "I'll try." The call ended. She spent the next 3 days in the cabin reading, planning, and waiting. Aaron checked in twice a day. Ortiz sent updates via encrypted messages. Garrett called once to say he'd traced the Meridian leak back to a contractor named Vincent Marquez, but Marquez had vanished before anyone could question him. On the 4th day, Ortiz called with news. "I got the records," she said. "Your deployment files, operational summaries, redacted, but enough to show context. And you're a goddamn hero. 14 confirmed lives saved under fire, 3 commendations, a silver star you never mentioned. Claire didn't respond. She didn't think about the medal much. It was in a box somewhere, gathering dust alongside her discharge papers, and a flag that had been folded by hands that didn't know her father. "We're going to use this," Ortiz continued. "We're going to show the jury exactly who you are. Not some unstable vet, a trained professional who did her job and did it well." "What about the incident they leaked? The foreign national?" Ortiz paused. "That was a defensive action during an ambush. You returned fire to protect your unit. It's in the report. Justified. Legal. But they stripped the context and made it sound like murder. Can we prove that?" "We can. I've got 3 witnesses from your unit willing to testify. They're pissed about what's being done to you." Claire felt something loosen in her chest. Not relief, just a little less weight. "When do we go public?" she asked. "We don't. Not yet. We save it for trial. Let them think they've won. Then we hit them with everything." Claire liked the sound of that. 2 days later, Aaron called with different news. "One of the previous victims is talking," he said. "Lieutenant Sarah Kellerman. She filed a complaint against Dylan Cross 4 years ago. Harassment. Assault. Same pattern as yours. What made her change her mind? She saw your case, saw you fighting back, and she's tired of staying quiet." "Will she testify?" "She already agreed. We're meeting with her tomorrow. You should be there." Claire met Aaron and Ortiz at a coffee shop in a town 30 miles from Silverton. Sarah Kellerman was already there when they arrived, early 30s, sharp eyes, the kind of posture that said she'd spent time in uniform and never fully left it behind. She stood when Claire approached, extended a hand. "Sarah Kellerman." "Claire Whitaker." They shook. Sarah's grip was firm. "I saw the video," Sarah said. What you did. I wish I'd had the guts to do that." "You're here now. That takes guts." They sat. Ortiz pulled out a recorder, set it on the table. "Tell us what happened," Ortiz said. Sarah took a breath. "I was assigned to Dylan Cross's unit in 2020. He was a lieutenant then, newly promoted. At first, it was just comments about my appearance, my body. I ignored it. You learn to do that." "When did it escalate?" Ortiz asked. 6 months in. We were at a unit function. He cornered me in a hallway, started touching me. I told him to stop. He didn't. I shoved him off and reported it the next day." "What happened after you reported it?" Sarah's jaw tightened. "Nothing. His father made calls. My complaint disappeared. I got reassigned, transferred to a different base. They told me it was for my own good." "Did anyone else witness the incident?" 2 people. But they refused to back me up. Didn't want to get involved." Ortiz made notes. "And you're willing to testify to all of this in court?" "Yes." "Even if they come after you, discredit you, dig into your life?" Sarah looked at Claire, then back at Ortiz. "I'm done being scared of him. Let them try." Ortiz smiled. "Good. We're going to need that energy." They spent the next hour going over details, timelines, and corroborating evidence. By the end, Ortiz had enough to build a pattern. 1 victim was a tragedy, 2 was a coincidence, 3 was a predator. When they finished, Sarah stood to leave. She paused, looked at Claire. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not backing down. For showing the rest of us it's possible." Claire didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded. Sarah left. Aaron and Ortiz stayed. "This changes everything," Ortiz said. "With Sarah's testimony, we can show the jury that Dylan Cross has a history, that this isn't an isolated incident, that he's been doing this for years." "What about the other victim?" Claire asked. "The contractor who settled out of court." "I'm working on it, but even if she doesn't come forward, we've got Sarah, and we've got you. That's enough." Aaron leaned forward. "There's something else. The DA's office called. They want to offer a deal." Claire's eyes narrowed. "What kind of deal?" "Dylan pleads guilty to a lesser charge. Misdemeanor harassment. No jail time, probation, and a fine. In exchange, you drop the felony assault charges." "No. Claire, no. He assaulted me. He's assaulted others. He doesn't get to walk away with a slap on the wrist." Aaron sighed. "I told them you'd say that, but they're going to push. The trial's expensive, high profile. They want it to go away." "Then they're going to be disappointed." Ortiz nodded. "Good. Because we're going to win this. And when we do, Dylan Cross is going to face real consequences. Not just legal ones, public ones. Claire returned to the cabin that night feeling something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Not the naive kind, the earned kind, the kind that came from having allies who believed you and evidence that backed you up. But hope didn't make her careless. She checked the perimeter before going inside, scanned the tree line, looked for fresh tire tracks on the gravel road. Found nothing. Inside, she locked the door, drew the curtains, and made herself dinner, canned soup heated on the stove because the microwave had stopped working 2 days ago, and she hadn't bothered to fix it. Her burner phone buzzed. Text from Garrett. Found Marquez. He's in Montreal. Meridian paid him 50 grand to disappear. Got proof. Claire typed back. Can we use it? Working on it. Might take a subpoena, but it's there. She set the phone down and finished her soup. The cabin creaked around her, settling into the night. Outside, an owl called. Wind rustled through the pines. Claire cleaned her bowl, checked the locks one more time, and went to bed. She didn't sleep well. Never did anymore. Too many years training herself to wake at the slightest sound. Too many nights where the wrong sound meant incoming fire. At 3 a.m., her eyes snapped open. Someone was outside. She didn't move, just listened. Footsteps. Careful. Deliberate. More than one person. Claire slipped out of bed, grabbed the knife from under her pillow, and moved to the window. She eased the curtain aside just enough to see. 2 figures. Dark clothing. Moving toward the cabin from the tree line. She pulled back, mind racing. Aaron and Paul were the only ones who knew about this place. Unless someone had followed them, or unless someone inside had talked. Claire grabbed the burner phone, texted Aaron. Compromised. 2 hostiles approaching. No response. It was 3 in the morning. He was probably asleep. The footsteps reached the porch. Claire heard the boards creak. Then the doorknob rattled. Testing it. She moved to the back door, unlocked it silently, and slipped outside into the cold night air. Barefoot. Armed with just a knife. Not ideal, but she'd worked with worse. Claire circled around the cabin, staying low, using the shadows. She could hear them at the front door now, picking the lock, whispering to each other. She got behind them just as the door swung open. They moved inside. Claire counted to 3, then followed. The first one was silhouetted in the doorway, sweeping a flashlight across the empty living room. The second was behind him, covering. Claire moved fast. She grabbed the first one from behind, knife to his throat, and pulled him backward off balance. He dropped the flashlight. It rolled across the floor, beam spinning. The second one spun, weapon coming up. Don't, Claire said. Calm, flat. Drop it, or he dies. The second one hesitated. In the scattered light, Claire could see his face. Young, maybe 25, scared. Drop it, she repeated. He lowered the weapon. Not all the way, just enough. Who sent you? Claire asked. The man in her grip didn't answer. She pressed the blade harder. Not enough to cut, just enough to make a point. Last chance. Meridian, he gasped. Meridian sent us. To do what? Bring you in. Bring me in where? He didn't answer. Claire shifted her grip, applied pressure to the carotid. He went limp in seconds. She lowered him to the floor, turned to the second one. He was gone. Claire heard the back door slam. She ran after him, burst outside, saw him sprinting for the trees. She didn't chase. Instead, she went back inside, zip-tied the unconscious one's wrist with a cable from her go bag, and called Aaron. This time he answered, groggy. What, They found me. 2 of them. I've got one tied up. The other ran. I'm on my way. Don't move. Claire hung up. Dragged the tied-up man outside and propped him against the porch railing. Then she waited. He came to about 10 minutes later, blinking, trying to orient himself. Where am I? Doesn't matter. Start talking. I don't know anything. Claire crouched in front of him. You said Meridian sent you. Who at Meridian? I don't have a name. We got orders through a handler. Secure the target. Transport her to a secondary location. That's it. What secondary location? I don't know. We were just supposed to make the grab and hand you off. To who? I told you, I don't know. Claire studied him. He was telling the truth. Or thought he was. Low-level contractors. Expendable. They wouldn't have been told more than they needed to know. Headlights cut through the trees. Aaron's car. He pulled up, got out, gun drawn. Took in the scene. Claire standing over a zip-tied man, blood on her hands that wasn't hers. "You all right?" Aaron asked. "I'm fine." "He's not." Aaron holstered his weapon, pulled out his phone, and made a call. "I need a unit at my location. One in custody. Possible second suspect fled on foot." He hung up, looked at Claire. "We need to move you again. This place is burned." "Where?" "I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out." The police arrived 20 minutes later. They took the contractor into custody, searched the area, found nothing. The second one was gone. Aaron drove Claire back toward the city. Dawn was breaking, pale light creeping over the horizon. "How did they find you?" Aaron asked. "I don't know. Either someone talked or they tracked us somehow. Paul wouldn't talk, and I was careful." Claire looked at him. "Then they've got resources we don't know about." Aaron's jaw tightened. "This is bigger than Dylan Cross. You know that, right?" "I know." They drove in silence for a while. Then Aaron pulled into a motel parking lot off the highway. Generic. Forgettable. "Stay here for now," he said. "Pay cash. Don't use your name. I'll figure out the next move." Claire nodded, took the cash he offered, got out. "Claire," Aaron called. She turned. "We're going to end this, I promise." She wanted to believe him, but promises didn't stop bullets or make powerful people face consequences. "Just get me to trial," she said. "I'll handle the rest." The trial started on a cold Monday morning in mid-November. The courthouse was packed, reporters, cameras, protesters holding signs on both sides. Some supported Claire. Others called her a danger. Claire walked in with Aaron and Ortiz, ignoring the shouts and flashing lights. She wore a simple gray suit, hair pulled back, no jewelry, professional, controlled. Dylan sat at the defense table with his team of lawyers. He looked confident, too confident. The jury was seated. 12 people who would decide if Claire had defended herself or crossed a line. The prosecution went first. Lisa Hartman laid out the case, Dylan's actions, the witnesses, the video evidence. She was methodical, precise, building a timeline that left no room for doubt. Then the defense had their turn. Dylan's lead attorney, Marcus Raines, was exactly what Claire expected. Expensive suit, polished smile, voice that could sell ice to someone freezing. "Ladies and gentlemen," Raines began, "this case is not about what happened in that restaurant. It's about what Claire Whitaker brought with her, a history of violence, a pattern of aggression. A woman who, despite her training, couldn't control herself when confronted with a simple misunderstanding." He pulled up the leaked reports, the redacted documents, the incident overseas. "Ms. Whitaker has been involved in violent altercations before. She has killed. And while those actions may have been justified in a war zone, we are not in a war zone. We are in a civilized society, and in civilized society we do not respond to words with violence." Claire sat still, hands folded. She didn't react, didn't flinch. Ortiz leaned over and whispered, "Let him talk. We'll bury him later." The first day ended with witness testimony. The hostess from the restaurant. The man in the blazer who'd tried to intervene. Both confirmed Dylan had grabbed Claire first, but Raines chipped away at their credibility, suggested they were biased, that they'd seen what they wanted to see. Day 2 was worse. Raines called an expert witness, a psychologist who specialized in PTSD. The man testified that veterans with combat experience often struggled with impulse control, that they could perceive threats where none existed. In Ms. Whitaker's mind, the psychologist said, a simple touch could have felt like an attack. Her training, her experiences, may have caused her to overreact. Ortiz cross-examined, shredded his credentials, pointed out he'd never met Claire, never evaluated her, never reviewed her medical records. But the damage was done. The seed was planted. Day 3, Ortiz called Sarah Kellerman to the stand. Sarah walked in wearing her dress uniform, medals pinned to her chest, shoulders back, eyes forward. She took the oath and sat down. Ortiz started gently. "Lieutenant Kellerman, can you tell the court about your experience with the defendant?" Sarah didn't hesitate. She told the whole story. The harassment, the assault, the complaint that went nowhere. Raines objected twice. Both times the judge overruled him. When Sarah finished, the courtroom was silent. Raines stood for cross-examination. He tried to rattle her, asked why she'd waited so long to come forward, suggested she was lying for attention. Sarah didn't break. "I'm here," she said, voice steady, "because I'm tired of men like him getting away with it." The jury didn't look at Dylan the same way after that. Day 4, Claire took the stand. Ortiz walked her through the night at the restaurant, every detail, every moment. "When he grabbed your wrist," Ortiz asked, "what did you think?" "That he wasn't going to stop," Claire said. "That if I didn't act, it would get worse." "And your response?" "I used the minimum force necessary to neutralize the threat." "Did you want to hurt him?" "No, I wanted him to let go." Rains took over. He came at her hard, asked about her deployments, her contract work, the people she'd killed. Claire answered every question, calmly, directly. "You've been trained to kill," Rains said. "Is that correct?" "I've been trained to save lives. Sometimes that requires eliminating threats." "And you saw Dylan Cross as a threat?" "He grabbed me, refused to stop. Yes, I saw him as a threat." "And you neutralized him?" "I defended myself." Rains smiled. No further questions. But Ortiz wasn't done. On redirect, she pulled out the deployment records, the commendations, the Silver Star. "Miss Whitaker," Ortiz said, "can you tell the jury about the incident in Kandahar, the one that earned you this medal?" Claire hesitated. She didn't like talking about it, but Ortiz had prepped her. This was the moment that would define her in the jury's eyes. "We were under fire," Claire said. "Ambush. 3 casualties. I stabilized 2 while taking cover and returned fire to protect the 3rd. We all made it out. You saved 3 lives that day. I did my job." "And the person you killed? The one the defense mentioned?" Claire met Rains's eyes, then the jury's. "He was shooting at us. I returned fire. He didn't make it. That's what happens in war." Ortiz nodded. No further questions. The trial went to closing arguments on day 5. Hartman summarized the evidence. The video, the witnesses, Sarah's testimony. She painted a picture of a man who thought he was untouchable, who'd gotten away with this before, and who'd finally met someone who wouldn't let him. Rains countered, painted Claire as unstable, dangerous, a woman who couldn't let go of the war and brought it home with her. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the courtroom was so quiet Claire could hear her own heartbeat. "On the charge of assault in the 1st degree, how do you find?" "Guilty." Dylan's face went white. "On the charge of battery, how do you find?" "Guilty." His lawyers were already whispering, scrambling. "On the charge of harassment, how do you find?" "Guilty." The judge banged her gavel. "The defendant will remain in custody pending sentencing. Court adjourned." Dylan was led away in handcuffs. He didn't look at Claire, didn't look at anyone. Outside, the steps were chaos. Reporters shouting questions, cameras everywhere. Claire stood with Aaron and Ortiz watching the crowd. "You did it," Aaron said. "We did it," Claire corrected. Ortiz smiled. "This isn't over. Sentencing's in 2 weeks. But we won the big one." Claire nodded. She felt tired, relieved, but not finished, because she knew Dylan Cross wasn't the only one involved. Meridian Group, Senator Cross, Victoria Brennan. They were still out there, still pulling strings. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. "Yeah." "Congratulations, Victoria Brennan's voice, smooth, unbothered. "You've got nothing to say to me." "Actually, I do. You won the battle, but you've made powerful enemies, people who don't forget." "Let them remember." Victoria laughed. "You're tougher than I thought, but toughness won't save you from what's coming." "What's coming?" A pause. Then, "Check your email. You've just been subpoenaed. Federal investigation. Seems someone thinks you violated classification protocols by discussing operational details in open court." Claire's stomach dropped. "That's garbage. Everything was cleared through JAG." "Maybe, but investigations take time, and during that time your credibility gets questioned, your finances get frozen, your life gets put under a microscope. Sound familiar?" Claire's grip tightened on the phone. "You did this." "I'm just the messenger. My clients wanted you to understand, winning one case doesn't mean you've won. It just means the fight's moved to a different arena." The line went dead. Claire stood there, phone in hand, as the crowd surged around her, reporters shouting, cameras flashing. people cheering her name. And somewhere, in an office she'd never see, someone was already drafting the next attack, the next move designed to break her, to make her regret she'd ever fought back. But as Claire looked at Aaron and Ortiz, at Sarah Kellerman standing off to the side giving an interview, at the people holding signs that said "Justice for Claire," she realized something. They could come at her with everything they had: investigations, lawsuits, character assassinations. But they'd already lost the part that mattered, because she wasn't alone anymore, and people were watching. Aaron's phone rang, he answered, face going serious, listened, then hung up. "That was Garrett," he said. "He just got word. FBI's opening an investigation into Meridian Group, wire fraud, falsifying federal documents. Someone leaked everything, client lists, payment records, the whole operation." Claire blinked. "Who?" Aaron shook his head. "He doesn't know. But whoever it was, they just handed the feds a case on a silver platter." Ortiz was grinning. "Meridian's done. And if they're done, everyone connected to them, Cross's family included, they're all exposed." Claire felt something shift. Not victory, not yet, but momentum. "What about the subpoena Victoria mentioned?" she asked. Ortiz pulled out her phone, made a call, had a brief conversation, hung up. "It's real," she said, "but it's also sloppy. Filed by someone with no jurisdiction. My guess? They panicked, tried to throw something at you fast before the Meridian news broke. It won't hold." "You sure?" "Positive. I'll have it dismissed by end of week." Aaron was reading something on his phone, expression darkening. Then he showed Claire the screen. Breaking. Senator William Cross steps down amid federal investigation into contractor ties. Claire read the headline twice, then the article. Senator Cross was resigning, effective immediately, citing personal reasons. The dominoes were falling, and she'd barely pushed the first one. Her phone buzzed again, this time a text from a number she recognized. "Colonel Brennick. You did good, kid. Your father would be proud." Claire stared at the message for a long moment. Then she pocketed the phone and looked at the courthouse steps, at the crowd still gathered, at the cameras still rolling. She'd come here alone. A woman no one believed. A story no one wanted to hear. And she was leaving with her name cleared, her enemies exposed, and a fight that had just shifted from defense to offense. Victoria Brennan could threaten all she wanted. Meridian could scramble. The Cross family could burn their bridges and try to salvage what was left of their reputation. But Claire Whitaker wasn't the one on trial anymore. They were. And this time, the whole world was watching. Claire stood on those courthouse steps for another 10 minutes, answering questions she'd sworn she'd never answer, speaking words she'd convinced herself no one wanted to hear. The reporters pressed closer, microphones thrust forward, cameras tracking her every movement. "Miss Whitaker, how does it feel to have won?" She looked directly into the lens. "It feels like the beginning, not the end." "What do you mean by that?" "I mean, Dylan Cross is one man, but the system that protected him, that's still there. And until that changes, this keeps happening." A reporter from the back shouted, "Are you calling for reform?" "I'm calling for accountability, for everyone, no matter who their family is or how much money they have." Aaron touched her elbow gently. "We should go." Claire nodded, but before she turned away, she caught sight of someone in the crowd. A young woman, maybe 22, holding a sign that read, "I believe survivors." Their eyes met. The woman nodded once, lips pressed tight like she was holding back tears. Claire nodded back. Then she let Aaron guide her down the steps toward his car. Inside, with the doors closed and the noise muffled, Claire exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. "You did good back there," Ortiz said from the back seat. "Better than good. You gave them something real." "I just told the truth." "That's what made it real." Aaron started the engine. "Where to?" Claire looked out the window at the dispersing crowd, the cameras packing up, the protesters folding their signs. Somewhere quiet. They ended up at a diner 40 minutes outside the city. Same kind of place as Harper's, worn booths, coffee that tasted like it had been sitting since morning, a jukebox that only played songs from before Claire was born. They ordered food none of them were hungry for and sat in silence for a while. Finally, Ortiz spoke. "The subpoena is going to disappear. I've already got 2 JAG lawyers confirming everything you said in court was pre-cleared. Whoever filed it didn't do their homework. Victoria Brennan doesn't strike me as someone who makes mistakes, Claire said. She doesn't, but she's working for people who are panicking, and panic makes people sloppy. Aaron was reading something on his phone, scrolling with his thumb. FBI just executed search warrants on 3 Meridian Group offices, New York, D.C., and here in Silverton. They're moving fast. How fast? Claire asked. Arrest by end of week, if the reports are accurate. Wire fraud, falsifying federal documents, conspiracy. The whole operation's coming down. Claire picked at her fries. And Dylan's family? Senator Cross is done. His resignation's already accepted. But the others, Dylan's father, his mother, they're lawyering up, trying to distance themselves. Ortiz snorted. Good luck with that. Once Meridian's books are public, every payment they made is going to have a paper trail. And those trails lead straight back to the people who hired them. What about Dylan? Claire asked. Sentencing's in 2 weeks. What's he looking at? Minimum 2 years, Ortiz said. Maximum 5, given the priors and the pattern. Judge Thornhill doesn't like repeat offenders, especially ones with resources who should have known better. Claire thought about that. 2 to 5 years. It wasn't enough. Not for what he'd done. Not for all the women who'd stayed silent because they knew the system wouldn't protect them. But it was more than nothing. And more than he would have gotten if she'd walked away. Aaron set his phone down. There's something else. The contractor you tied up at the cabin? He's cooperating. Gave the FBI names, locations, operational details. Turns out Meridian was running surveillance on you for weeks, following you, recording you, building a profile. Claire's jaw tightened. For what? Leverage. They were looking for anything they could use to discredit you. When they didn't find it, they manufactured it. The leaked records. Yeah. And the home invasion, and the threats. All coordinated. All designed to break you before trial. Claire stared at her plate. She'd known, on some level, that it was bigger than Dylan. But hearing it confirmed, hearing that there had been people watching her, cataloging her life, trying to find her breaking point, it made her stomach turn. They failed, Ortiz said quietly. That's what matters. They threw everything at you and you're still here. Claire looked up. We're still here. I didn't do this alone. Ortiz smiled. No, you didn't. They finished their meal in relative quiet, the kind of comfortable silence that came from shared exhaustion and mutual respect. When the check came, Aaron grabbed it before anyone could argue. This one's on me, he said. Consider it a victory dinner. Victory dinner at a diner with $3 coffee? Best kind. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Claire stood in the parking lot for a moment, watching the light fade, feeling the weight of the past few weeks start to lift. Aaron walked over. What now? I don't know yet. You've got options. The media attention alone. You could write a book, do speaking engagements, advocacy work. Claire shook her head. That's not me. Then what is? She thought about it. About the cabin in the woods. About the go-bag she still carried everywhere. About the part of her that was always scanning for exits and threats and ways to stay 3 steps ahead. I want to help people, she said finally. But not by talking. By doing. Aaron nodded slowly. Like what? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. Ortiz joined them, car keys in hand. I'm heading back to the city. You two need anything before I go? We're good, Aaron said. Thanks, Rebecca. For everything. Ortiz looked at Claire. You've got my number. You need anything? Legal advice? A reference? Someone to testify that you're not crazy? You call me. Claire smiled. I will. Ortiz got in her car and drove off, taillights disappearing into the dusk. Aaron turned to Claire. You want to ride back? Actually, I think I'm going to stay out here for a bit. Clear my head. You sure? Yeah, I'll catch a bus back later. Aaron hesitated, then nodded. All right, but call me when you get home, just so I know you're safe. I will. He got in his car, gave her a small wave, and drove off. Claire stood alone in the parking lot, watching the last light drain from the sky. Then she started walking. She didn't have a destination in mind, just needed to move, to feel her feet on solid ground, to remind herself that she was still here, still standing, still whole. She walked for an hour, maybe more, following back roads and empty fields until she found herself standing at the edge of a lake. The water was dark and still, reflecting the stars just starting to appear overhead. Claire sat down on a fallen log and pulled out her phone, turned it on for the first time since leaving the courthouse. 53 missed calls, 114 texts, most from reporters, a few from numbers she didn't recognize, and one from Garrett Hale. She opened his message. Meridian's CFO just flipped, gave the FBI everything. This thing's over. You won. Claire stared at the words. You won. It didn't feel like winning. It felt like surviving, like crawling out of a burning building and realizing you'd lost things in the fire you could never get back. But maybe that was what winning looked like sometimes. Not glory, not triumph. Just making it through and deciding what came next. Her phone buzzed. Another text. This one from Sarah Kellerman. Thank you for everything. I'm filing a civil suit against the DOD for how they handled my complaint, using your case as precedent. Thought you should know. Claire typed back. Good. Make them pay. Sarah responded immediately. I will. And if you ever need anything, you let me know. We're in this together. Claire pocketed her phone and looked out at the lake. The water was so still it looked like glass. Like if she stepped out onto it, she'd just keep walking. She thought about her father, about the things he used to say when she was young and the world felt too big and complicated. Do the right thing, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. She'd done that. And it had cost her, her job, her privacy, her sense of safety. But it had also given her something. A voice, a platform, a reason to keep going. Claire stood, brushed the dirt off her jeans, and started walking back toward the road. She'd catch that bus, go back to the city, figure out what came next. But first, she had one more thing to do. The next morning, Claire showed up at the Silverton County Courthouse an hour before it opened. She wasn't there for a hearing or a meeting. She was there because she'd gotten a message from Judge Thornhill's clerk asking her to come in. The clerk led her through empty hallways to the judge's chambers. Thornhill was sitting behind her desk, reading glasses perched on her nose, reviewing a stack of documents. Miss Whitaker, she said, looking up. Have a seat. Claire sat. Thornhill set the documents aside. I wanted to speak with you off the record. What you did in that courtroom, testifying, standing your ground despite everything being thrown at you, that took courage. I just told the truth. Yes, but the truth isn't always easy, especially when powerful people want it buried. Thornhill leaned forward. I've been on the bench for 22 years. I've seen a lot of cases, a lot of victims who were too scared to speak, and I've seen what happens when someone finally does. It changes things, not overnight, not all at once, but it plants a seed. Claire didn't know what to say to that. I'm telling you this, Thornhill continued, because I think you have a future in advocacy, whether that's legal work, policy reform, or something else entirely. But whatever you choose, know that your voice matters, and people are listening. Thank you, Your Honor. Thornhill nodded. Sentencing for Mr. Cross is set for next Thursday. I wanted you to know that I'm imposing the maximum penalty allowed under the guidelines, 5 years. No parole eligibility for at least 3. Claire felt something loosen in her chest. He deserves more. I agree. But it's what the law allows. And it sends a message that no one is above accountability. What about his family, the people who protected him? That's outside my jurisdiction. But the federal investigation is ongoing. If they were involved, and the evidence suggests they were, they'll face consequences. Claire stood. Thank you. Don't thank me. You did the hard part. I'm just making sure it counts. Claire left the courthouse feeling lighter than she had in weeks. The sentencing wasn't perfect. Nothing about this was perfect. But it was justice. Imperfect, messy, hard-won justice. And that was enough. Over the next 2 weeks, the dominoes continued to fall. Meridian Group's CEO was arrested on 17 counts of fraud and conspiracy. 3 senior executives followed. The company's assets were frozen pending investigation. Victoria Brennan's law firm issued a statement distancing themselves from her work with Meridian. She resigned quietly, her name scrubbed from their website within hours. Senator Cross's resignation became official. An ethics committee opened an investigation into his financial ties to private contractors. Early reports suggested he'd accepted illegal payments totaling over $2 million. Dylan's father, retired Colonel Andrew Cross, was subpoenaed to testify before a grand jury. His lawyer released a statement claiming he had no knowledge of Meridian's activities. No one believed him, and through it all, Claire stayed quiet. She didn't give interviews, didn't post on social media, didn't capitalize on her 15 minutes of fame. She just worked. Torres offered her a job at the gym, teaching self-defense classes to women who'd been through what she'd been through. Women who needed to feel strong again, women who deserved to know they could fight back. Claire said yes. The first class was small, 8 women, ages ranging from 19 to 56. Some had been assaulted. Some had been harassed. All of them were tired of being afraid. Claire stood in front of them, wrapped hands resting at her sides, and said, "I'm not here to teach you how to be a soldier. I'm here to teach you how to survive, how to recognize danger, how to react, and most importantly, how to trust yourself when it matters." One of the women raised her hand. "What if we freeze? What if we can't do it?" Claire met her eyes. "Then you practice until you can. Fear's normal, but fear doesn't have to win." They worked for an hour. Basic strikes, defensive postures, situational awareness, nothing fancy, just practical, functional techniques designed to give someone a chance. At the end, a woman named Maria approached. She was in her 30s, arms covered in scars she didn't try to hide. "Thank you," Maria said. "I've been to therapy, I've talked to counselors, but this is the first time I've felt like I have control again." Claire didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded. Maria left. The others followed. And Claire stood alone in the empty gym, wrapping her hands for her own training session, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. On Thursday, Claire sat in the courtroom for Dylan Cross's sentencing. The room was packed again. Reporters, family members, a few faces Claire recognized from the trial. Dylan was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of him. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. Judge Thornhill read the charges, the verdict, the impact statements from Sarah Kellerman, and 2 other women who'd come forward after the trial. Then she delivered the sentence. 5 years in state prison, no parole eligibility for a minimum of 3 years. Additionally, you are required to register as a convicted offender and prohibited from holding any position of authority over subordinates upon release. Dylan didn't react, just stood there, staring at the floor. "Do you have anything to say?" Thornhill asked. His lawyer whispered something. Dylan shook his head. "Then this court is adjourned." Dylan was led away. His mother was crying in the front row. His father sat stone-faced, staring straight ahead. Claire didn't feel satisfaction, didn't feel vindication, just a quiet sense of closure. Outside, Aaron was waiting. "It's done," he said. "Yeah." "How do you feel?" Claire thought about it. "Tired, but okay." Aaron smiled. "That's a start." They walked down the courthouse steps together. The reporters had moved on to the next story. The protesters were gone. It was just another cold November afternoon in Silverton. "You sticking around?" Aaron asked. "For now. I've got the gym, the classes. It's enough." "And after?" Claire shrugged. "I'll figure it out when I get there." Aaron nodded. "You've got my number. You need anything?" "I know. Thanks, Aaron, for everything. You did the hard part. We all did." They shook hands. Aaron walked to his car. Claire stood there for a moment, watching him drive away. Then she turned and started walking. 6 months later, Claire's self-defense classes had grown from 8 women to 43. She'd expanded to 3 sessions a week, brought in guest instructors, and started a sliding scale payment system so money was never a barrier. The media had mostly moved on. Occasional follow-up articles. A few podcast interviews she politely declined, but the viral moment had faded, replaced by newer outrages and fresher scandals. Claire preferred it that way. She'd moved into a new apartment, small, but hers. No ghosts, no memories of invasions or threats spray-painted on walls. Just a clean space where she could sleep without checking the locks 3 times. Garrett called every few weeks, checked in, shared updates on his security firm, offered her a job twice. She declined both times, but left the door open. Ortiz sent occasional emails, case law updates, news articles about reforms being proposed in military justice systems, small victories that added up over time. Sarah Kellerman's civil suit against the DoD was moving forward, slowly, bureaucratically, but moving. And Dylan Cross was 6 months into his sentence, stationed at a medium security facility 2 hours north. Claire didn't think about him much. When she did, it was less about anger and more about acceptance. He was facing consequences. That had to be enough. One evening, as Claire was locking up the gym after her last class, Torres approached. "Got a minute?" Torres asked. "Sure." They sat on the bench outside. The city hummed around them, cars passing, people walking home from work, the ordinary rhythm of life. "I've been thinking," Torres said, "about expanding, opening a second location, maybe partnering with a women's shelter downtown, offering free classes to residents." Claire looked at her. "That's a big step." "I know, but I've been doing this for 30 years, and in 30 years I've never seen someone connect with students the way you do. They trust you, because you've been where they are." "What are you asking?" Torres smiled. "I'm asking if you want to run it, the second location, full autonomy, your program, your rules." Claire blinked. "That's a lot, I know. You don't have to answer now, just think about it." Claire nodded slowly. "I will." Torres stood, patted her shoulder, and walked back inside. Claire sat there for a while, watching the sun set over Silverton. The city looked different now. Not safer, not kinder, just different. Like she was seeing it through new eyes. Her phone buzzed. Text from Maria, the woman from her first class. "Just wanted to say thanks again. I used what you taught me last week. Guy grabbed my arm at a bar. I broke his grip and walked away. Felt good to not freeze." Claire typed back, "Proud of you." "That's exactly what it's for." Maria sent back a thumbs up emoji. Claire pocketed her phone and stood. She had dinner waiting at home, leftover pasta she'd made too much of the night before. Nothing fancy, but hers. As she walked, she thought about the past year, about the restaurant, the trial, the threats, the fear, and about what came after. She'd spent so much of her life being what other people needed. A medic, a soldier, a contractor. Someone who fixed problems and saved lives and moved on before anyone got too close. But now, for the first time, she was building something that was hers. A community. A purpose. A life that didn't revolve around survival. It wasn't perfect. She still had nightmares sometimes. Still checked exits out of habit. Still carried a go bag in her closet, even though she hadn't needed it in months. But she was healing, slowly, imperfectly. But healing. And that was enough. 2 months later, Claire stood in front of the second gym location, a renovated warehouse in a neighborhood that had seen better decades but was trying to claw its way back. The sign above the door read, "Safeguard Self-Defense, a space for survivors." Torres handed her the keys. "It's all yours." Claire turned them over in her hand. They felt heavier than they should have. "You nervous?" Torres asked. "A little? Good. Means you care." The first class at the new location had 26 women. Some had heard about Claire through word of mouth. Others had seen articles or social media posts. A few had been referred by counselors or shelters. Claire stood in front of them and said the same thing she always said. "I'm not here to make you fearless. I'm here to give you tools. What you do with them is up to you." They worked for 90 minutes. Strikes. Blocks. Escapes. Practical techniques that didn't require strength or size, just awareness and commitment. At the end, a woman in her early 20s approached. Her name was Lena. She had bruises on her arms she'd tried to cover with long sleeves. "Can I ask you something?" Lena said. "Of course." When the thing at the restaurant happened, were you scared?" Claire thought about it. "Yeah, but I didn't let the fear make my decisions." "How do you do that?" "Practice. And knowing that fear's just information. It tells you something's wrong. What you do with that information, that's where the power is." Lena nodded slowly. "I'm leaving him. My boyfriend. I've been planning it for weeks, but I keep chickening out. You're here. That's not chickening out." "It feels like it." Claire looked at her. Really looked. Saw the bruises, yeah, but also the set of her jaw. The way she'd shown up despite being terrified. The fact that she was still trying. "You're already braver than you think," Claire said. "The rest is just logistics." Lena's eyes filled with tears. She nodded, wiped them away, and left. Claire watched her go, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. These women weren't just learning self-defense. They were learning to believe they deserved safety, deserved respect, deserved to take up space without apologizing for it. And that was bigger than any trial verdict or news headline. That was the real work. A year after the trial, Claire got a call from a producer at a major streaming service. They wanted to make a documentary about her case. Full creative control. Her story, her way. She said no. Not because she was ashamed, not because she wanted to forget, but because her story wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to Sarah Kellerman, and Maria, and Lena, and every woman who'd ever been told to stay quiet and decided to speak anyway. Instead, she wrote an op-ed, published it in a national paper, titled it simply, "Why I Fought Back and Why You Can Too." It went viral, again. But this time, Claire was ready. She didn't engage with the trolls or the critics, didn't waste energy arguing with people who'd already decided she was either a hero or a villain. She just kept teaching, kept showing up, kept building. And slowly, the noise faded, replaced by something quieter, something sustainable, a life. One evening, Claire sat in her apartment, laptop open, reviewing applications for instructor positions at the gyms. Torres wanted to expand again, 3 new locations across the state. They needed people who understood the mission, who'd lived it. Claire's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, then thought better of it. "Yeah? Miss Whitaker, this is Captain Jonas Reed. I'm with the Army's JAG Corps. I'm calling because we're putting together a task force to review how assault complaints are handled within the military. Your name came up as someone who might have insight." Claire leaned back. "I'm listening. We're looking for advisors, people with first-hand experience, people who aren't afraid to tell us what's broken. Wondering if you'd be interested. In what capacity? Consulting, reviewing policy proposals, maybe testifying before Congress if it comes to that. It's unpaid, but it's important." Claire thought about it, about Sarah's lawsuit, about all the women who'd reported and been ignored, about the system that protected predators and punished victims. "I'm in," she said. "When do we start?" "Next month. I'll send details." "Looking forward to it." She hung up and stared at the ceiling. A year ago, she'd been alone, fighting just to be believed. And now she was being asked to help change the system that had failed so many. It felt surreal, but also right. Like everything she'd been through, the deployments, the trial, the threats, it had all been leading to this. Not some grand destiny, just a chance to make things a little better for the people who came after. That was enough. 2 years after the restaurant, Claire stood on a stage at a women's leadership conference in Chicago. She'd been invited to speak. Paid this time. Enough to cover travel and then some. The room was packed, 1,500 people, most of them women, most of them with stories like hers. Claire adjusted the microphone and looked out at the audience. "I'm not going to tell you fighting back is easy," she said. "It's not. It's exhausting. It's terrifying. And it costs you things you'll never get back." She paused. "Let that sit. But here's what I learned. Silence costs more. Staying quiet to keep the peace, that doesn't protect you. It just protects the people who hurt you." Someone in the front row nodded. "So if you're sitting here thinking you're not strong enough or brave enough or important enough to stand up, you're wrong. You already are. You just have to decide you're worth fighting for." The applause was immediate, thunderous. Claire waited for it to die down before continuing. "And one more thing. You don't have to do it alone. Find your people. Build your community. Because the ones who want you silent, they're counting on you feeling isolated. Don't give them that." She finished her talk 20 minutes later, answered questions for another 10, and walked off stage to a standing ovation. Backstage, a woman approached. She introduced herself as a literary agent. "Ever think about writing a book?" the agent asked. Claire smiled. "Not really my thing." "You'd be surprised. People want to hear this, not just women. Everyone." Claire handed her a card, Safeguard Self-Defense. "If they want to hear it, they can come to a class." The agent laughed. "Fair enough." Claire left the conference that afternoon, caught a flight back to Silverton, and was home by midnight. She unlocked her apartment, dropped her bag by the door, and collapsed on the couch. Her phone buzzed. Text from Sarah Kellerman. "Won the lawsuit. DOD settling for undisclosed amount plus policy reforms. We did it." Claire stared at the message, typed back. "You did it? I just showed you it was possible." Sarah responded immediately. "We both did. And we're not done." No, they weren't, because this wasn't about one trial or one verdict or one system. It was about changing the way people thought about power, about who deserved it and who got to wield it. And that kind of change didn't happen overnight. But it was happening, slowly, imperfectly, but happening. Claire set her phone down, closed her eyes, and let herself feel it. Not pride, exactly. Just a quiet certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. And for the first time in her life, that was enough. 5 years after the restaurant, Claire stood in a renovated community center in downtown Silverton. The space was huge. 4 training areas, locker rooms, a counseling center staffed by licensed therapists, and a resource library filled with legal information and support contacts. The sign above the entrance read, Safeguard Center, Empowerment Through Action. It wasn't just a gym anymore, it was a movement. They offered self-defense classes, legal clinics, job training, and peer support groups. Everything a survivor might need to rebuild. All free or sliding scale, funded by donations, grants, and a partnership with the city. Torres had retired the year before, handing the reins to Claire with a handshake and a grin. "You've built something good here," Torres had said. "Don't screw it up." Claire didn't plan to. On opening day, over 300 people showed up. Press, politicians, survivors, supporters. Aaron was there. So was Ortiz. Garrett flew in from Denver. Even Judge Thornhill made an appearance, shaking Claire's hand and whispering, "You've done well." Sarah Kellerman gave a speech. So did Maria. And Lena, who'd left her abusive boyfriend 4 years ago and now worked as a counselor at a women's shelter. When it was Claire's turn to speak, she kept it short. This place exists because people refused to stay quiet, because they fought back, and because they believed they deserved better. That's all any of us need to do. Believe we're worth it, and then act like it. The applause was loud. The cameras flashed, but Claire barely noticed. She was looking at the faces in the crowd. Women who'd survived things they shouldn't have had to survive. Women who'd rebuilt when the world told them they were broken. And she realized something. She wasn't special. She wasn't a hero. She was just someone who'd refused to disappear. And in refusing, she'd made space for others to do the same. That was the real power. Not in winning, not in recognition, but in showing people they didn't have to fight alone. The ceremony ended. The crowd dispersed. Claire stayed behind, walking through the empty center, running her hand along the walls she'd helped paint. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. She opened it. "You don't know me, but I saw your talk in Chicago, and I reported my boss today. For the first time in 3 years, I'm not afraid anymore. Thank you." Claire stared at the message, then typed back, "You did that, not me. Be proud." She pocketed her phone and walked outside into the cool evening air. The city stretched out before her, lights flickering on as dusk settled in. Somewhere out there, someone was deciding whether to speak up or stay silent, whether to fight back or walk away. And maybe, just maybe, they'd remember that a quiet nurse in a restaurant had once refused to be a victim, and that refusal had changed everything. Claire took a breath, let it out slow. Then she turned and locked the door behind her. Tomorrow, the center would open. Women would walk through those doors looking for safety, for answers, for a way forward. And Claire would be there, not as a hero, not as a symbol, just as someone who'd been through it and made it out the other side. Someone who knew that survival wasn't about being fearless. It was about being afraid and showing up anyway. And that was a lesson worth teaching. She walked down the steps, hands in her pockets, and disappeared into the city she'd once tried to leave. But this was home now. Not because it was safe, not because it was easy, but because she'd fought for her place in it, and won. Not perfectly, not without scars, but she'd won. And that, in the end, was all that mattered.